In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a Cisco switch for device deployment. The device in question is a Raritan PX2 Intelligent PDU. Now, just before we get into this, you might want to have a look at some of my previous videos on Cisco iOS command automation. Just go onto youtube.com and search for Andy Cranston Cisco. Now, I have a little switch, I've got a webcam trained on it, and I've got some ports on there, ports 1 through 8 on there, which I currently don't have anything plugged into it. Let's just leave that up there. Now, if I manually log into this switch, get to the enable prompt, and then I can run a command called show MAC address-table, and this command shows me the MAC addresses that it's learnt on the various interfaces, and we can see that because we've nothing plugged into ports 1 through 8, we're not seeing any of the ports 1 through 8. This GI0/1 is the 1 gig uplink port on the other end of the switch. So let's just plug something in. So just see, I've just plugged in my Raritan PDU into there. Now, if I log out of the switch, I can use my automation command, Cisco commands, provide some parameters to it. Hopefully I've got that right. And what happens here is this will log in to the switch and automatically run the command for me. And we can actually see here we've got a MAC address appearing here, FA0/2, which is the port number 2 on the switch, which we can see I have plugged into port number 2 here, flashing away. So it's found that. Now, because we can run this as a command, I can just put the output into a file. And we can take a look at the file. And we can see the MAC addresses. Now, Cisco represent their MAC addresses in this kind of weird format. They're kind of 2 bytes worth and then a full stop 2 bytes and like that. But most other people produce their MAC addresses in this kind of format. So in order to make things easier, once I've got the output into a file, I can run a little program called extractmac.py, and if I specify the file name and then a list of ports that I'm interested in, so port list FA0/1 FA. When we do that, it then actually produces a much easier to handle output. It just goes through that file, and any of the ports in that list which are showing a MAC address against them, it then gives me that MAC address, and it gives me it in both formats, just with no colons at all, and then the more sort of standard format with the colons in it, and just the name of the port there as well. Now you might be thinking, well, that's great, what does that do about actual deployment? Well, it's the basis for a deployment script. What we do is we regularly log into that switch, we run that show MAC address table command, we extract the MAC addresses on a number of ports. In this case it's just going to focus on the first four ports on that switch, and when it finds a MAC address that is never seen before, it will run a name script, and that script will go off and do something with that particular device. So that's the way that things work. Now I just need to get rid of some old files for a second. Now the script is called watch Mac, and I provide it with a name of a script. So I'm going to go dummy deploy, which guess what is a dummy script. So it logs into the switch and it looks at those ports. It finds that MAC address for the first time and it runs that script in the background. It then goes around again, it logs in again, and when it logs in the second time, although it will find that MAC address, it knows it's seen it before and won't actually do anything with it. Now what does that deploy script do? Well, it does a little bit of processing and then it should send me an email. So if I ask my system, have I been sent any email? Yes, I have. And if I read it, it's basically, let's just get a bit of a wider screen, look at it nicely. It's basically just saying this is the deployment scripts, it's created a working directory, this is the MAC address, the port number and stage is discovered. And I'll just get rid of that email. And if I look in this subdirectory, there's another subdirectory has appeared there. And if I look at all the files in there, it's just created a few little files in there with the MAC address, port name and stage. So you can see the general concept that's actually going on there. So this actually hasn't done anything particularly useful. Now, I do know that sitting on that port is a raritan PDU. It's on 207 at the moment. That's just been a DHCP address to it because it's been reset to factory defaults. So let's just add that security exception in. And if I log in as admin with the default password, so it's the default, it's asking me to change it, I'm saying not now, but this is just to prove that it's got a default setup, so it's got the default name, it hasn't got any IP addressing set up, so there's no default gateway, and if we look at the Ethernet, it's been using DHCP. So I'm going to log out of the device there. And what we'll do now, I'll just go and unplug the device. So see, it's unplugged. I'm going to stop my deployment script running. I'm going to get rid of the previous trace of it because I want to start clean. I'm going to restart this, but this time instead of running dummy deploy, I'm going to call a script called pxdeploy.sh. Let's just check I've spelled that right. Yes, I have. So run that. So it's not found anything. Just check I don't have any mail. Let's see what happens now. I've plugged it back in. So once the device becomes ready, the deployment script should find it and run the deploy.sh script. Ports take a little while just to become ready because I have to do speed negotiation, and then the port and then we have to see some data on that port, so probably a DHCP request. There we go. So now it's running that script, and again it goes round. It will see it again, but obviously it just makes sure it only runs the script once. If we just have a look in our MAC directory, we can see that's reappeared there. So now it's just a case of waiting for some email to come through. What's actually happening, I can just prove that so we can see here that the deploy script is being run. We've got some outputs. If I look again, I've got some mail. Let's have a look. Let's just maximise the screen up. Now, if we look at what's happening here, first of all, the script, it clears the ARP cache. It then uses a technique to find the IP address. Because it knows what the MAC address is, because it learnt that from the switch, it then needs to then work out what IP address has been associated with that MAC address. Once it's got that, it tells us some details. That's the MAC address 207. Then, without looking too closely at this, we do an initial SSH connection to the device. We try and log in as dummy user. All we do is we wait to see if we get a password prompt. If we get a password prompt, we think great, we then stop, we abort that as secure shell session. We then run another secure shell session to log in as the administrator on that device with the default password. And if we get in okay with the default password, we make the assumption that the device is at factory default settings, which it was because I showed you earlier. We then do a third login, and this third login then starts to issue some configuration commands. It sets a new administrator password, and it sets some other security settings as well. Then we log in a fourth time, and this time it configures the device. It gives it a name. It changes the configuration method to static, and it assigns an IP address with a subnet mask and a default gateway. So all being well, if I go back, if I now log in with 168.1.6, which is the IP address which I want to assign to it, again, because we haven't any certificates signed up yet, we'll just confirm that in. We get our login, so I log in as admin. Now notice how I've typed in a slightly longer password. This is just to prove it's still its default settings. We log in. It's the same device, I can promise you. I've only got one. It's been given its name, PX2 Study. And if we look at the device settings, remember last time there was no default gateway? Well, this time there is. It's been assigned. And remember last time it was using DHCP to assign its Ethernet address. This time it's static, and we've got the IP address in there. So the deployment script has found the device on the switch, and then it's run the script that logs into the device and sets up some initial network configuration for us. I could go on and set up a lot more things on it. I could add extra users to it. I could set up IP security policies. I could add secure shell credentials, all sorts of things to it. But for a proof of concept, I've just shown you that by using a simple switch, running a script to look at the ports and extract the MAC addresses, and then once I'm alerted to new MAC addresses that I've not seen before, I can determine the IP address against that MAC address, log into that device and do some configuration to it, and save myself a whole stack of time. So, all through the magic of software automation. If you'd like to know more about this, those are my contact details there. I'd love to hear from you, and if you have any questions, again, just drop me a line. Okay, thank you for watching.